All right, so today we're diving into Firebeast.Agency.
Firebeast.Agency, yeah.
And just taking a look at their portfolio. They're clearly, good at what they do visually.
Yeah, they're definitely a powerhouse when it comes to video production.
Exactly. So we're going to take a look at their work in a bunch of different categories: commercials, corporate films, trailers, all that stuff.
Yeah, what I find really interesting is just how diverse their portfolio is. You know, you can tell they're really good at kind of shifting their approach to meet the needs of very different clients, which I think is pretty cool.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm excited to see how this actually kind of plays out as we go through some specific projects.
Yeah, definitely. And even just starting right off the bat, like in this content plus commercials section,
right?
They've got trailers for some seriously iconic films like Blade Runner, A Clockwork Orange.
Oh, wow.
And then you've got stuff like a music video for this band called Esco Off.
Interesting.
Which I've never heard of.
Me neither.
But yeah, it's cool to see that range.
I know, and tackling those trailers for those classic films like Blade Runner is no joke, you know? You're working with an established universe, a built-in fan base. It really makes you wonder, how much creative freedom did they have? And, you know, how do they kind of inject their own vision into something that already has such a strong visual identity?
Yeah, and I guess the flip side of that is you've got something like a music video for an up-and-coming band where maybe there is a little bit more creative freedom.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's interesting to see kind of how they navigate both of those situations.
And, you know, another thing that stands out to me just in this section is the client list.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got huge global brands like Adidas and Volkswagen right next to smaller businesses like restaurants and cafes.
Right.
And that to me says that they're comfortable working at pretty much any scale.
Yeah.
You know, they can handle a massive corporation.
Right.
Just as well as they can handle, you know, a small local business.
Totally. Yeah, it speaks to their versatility for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to product plus corporate films. And wow, this list is extensive.
It is.
I mean, we've got companies like Hermes Abrasives.
Wow. I've actually used those before.
Really?
Yeah.
For what?
I do a bit of woodworking in my spare time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And their sandpaper is top notch.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's cool to see them on here.
It's a big range. And then, of course, you got like Google and even Ferdet Branca. Like, that's such a niche product.
It is. Yeah. Very specific.
Do you think we can maybe spot some trends in how Firebeast.Agency approaches these kinds of projects?
That's a good question. I think the biggest challenge with corporate films especially is making them engaging.
Right.
Because let's be honest, a lot of corporate films can be pretty dry.
Totally.
But, you know, a really skilled team can turn them into something compelling.
Yeah.
Like a story that you actually want to watch. So I'll be looking for, you know, how they balance that promotional aspect with the need to just keep the viewer interested.
Yeah. And I guess the visuals play a big part in that too.
That's for sure.
All right. And lastly, we have the image films section.
Right.
Which is pretty interesting because it's places like the Schnack Cafe and Unlimited Body Art. Which feel very different from like a product demo or something.
Yeah, you're not really selling a specific product here. It's more about capturing a feeling, like an atmosphere or a vibe.
Totally.
So I'm curious to see how Firebeast.Agency kind of approaches that.
Yeah, and like what techniques they might use.
Yeah. I mean, I'm imagining things like, you know, evocative music.
Right.
Close-up shots on interesting details, maybe even like some ASMR elements to really draw you in.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's a much more subtle approach, I think.
It really makes you think, like, how would they handle something like the Exorcist trailer?
Oh, yeah.
Compared to the Schnack Cafe.
Totally different vibes. One is all about fear and dread.
Yeah.
The other is maybe more like, you know, cozy and inviting.
Exactly. And yet they're both telling a story.
Exactly. And that's what makes Firebeast.Agency's portfolio so impressive to me. They're showing that strong visual storytelling can be applied to pretty much anything.
Yeah, you don't need a big budget or a Hollywood film
to
tell a compelling visual story.
Exactly.
So I think we've only just scratched the surface here.
We have.
But it's clear that Firebeast.Agency is doing some really interesting work.
They are. And what's really sticking with me is just how much they adapt their approach to each project. They're always thinking about the audience and the specific needs of the client.
Absolutely.
And it makes you think you know what visual stories are hiding within your own work, just waiting to be brought to life.
That's a great question to leave on.
I think so.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
And we'll catch you next time.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Take care.